It's a pleasure to host you once again this week as we discuss important things on the link. We promise to give you information you can use and opportunities. Today, we're dealing with information you can use and information you may not be able to run away from or ignore: tax and the budget. And I have the right person in the studio tonight to shed light on these tax issues come next financial year. She has been here before. She's called Juliet Najinda, Senior Manager Tax at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Juliet, welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
Now that the budget has passed, tax-wise, what's the general read we can give from government? Are we headed for better days, harder days? Should we brace ourselves for tougher times? Or government has forgiven us this time?
I would say it's a combination, because government is trying to strike a balance between having a fair tax system that is clear, but at the same time also be able to collect taxes in order to meet the targets as we all know them. So this year has been actually quite interesting, because when you look at the proposals that have come through, we have not seen a year where amendments are proposed and about 50%, like what happened this year, are withdrawn. And that withdrawal came from many people sharing their pain and the public outcry around how those changes were going to be implemented, how they were going to affect their businesses. You may recall a number, things around the restriction of the carried forward losses, the issues around the unit trust. So we've seen that all those have now been taken out, and now we have very lean changes which are looking at maximizing the tax revenue and then also ensuring that any loopholes are tightened, as well as removing ambiguity that has been existing across the board.
All right. I heard you clear when you said tightening and collecting more. Some measures might have been not allowed to come in, but still there's going to be collecting more and tightening. Now, let's deal with the common man in collecting more. What are some new measures I'm going to encounter as a common person, tax-wise, next financial year?
There's a number of them, especially from an indirect tax perspective, looking at VAT. Those are the ones that the common man normally suffers, because they are usually consumption taxes that affect us who are the consumers of the goods. So one of the key ones is which affects the mothers is the taxation of introduction of VAT on diapers. Diapers,
yes. I know I know what you mean. Go ahead.
So this is one of the provisions that came in. As it initially, when it came in, the proposal was to only tax diapers that are for babies and exempt the adult ones. But eventually, what we saw coming out is that they are now going to tax everything, irrespective of whether they are baby diapers or adult diapers. VAT is going to be applied, and there's been conversations around the negative environmental impact that these diapers have had, which has sort of then informed that kind of tax policy. Then the other thing that I would say affects the common man is the digital services. We know that last year government started taxing digital services. They put VAT, and we had conversations around people like Facebook, Google starting to charge VAT, where we use their services for advertising and the like. So now we've seen that government is expanding the scope of the digital services, because there are some few that had not been catered for. If you look at services like the cab hailing services.
Cab hailing, what does that mean?
So that would typically be, I'll use an example of Uber, because we know that Uber is a non-resident company that deals with people in Uganda to provide services. For us who have used, many of us who have had an opportunity to use Uber, Taxify, we know how those companies operate. So they pay a certain amount to the driver and take up a certain portion. So now such services, they'll need to start charging VAT when they are invoicing the users of the Ubers, the Taxifys, and all kinds of
so what does that mean if I grab Uber after July 1st?
So that means you'd expect that the invoice that you're going to get from Uber should have a VAT component, which is a bit of a disadvantage to Uber, because if then I use my normal cab guy, the passenger transportation, those ones are exempted from VAT. So that might disadvantage such such companies like Uber, Taxify that are non-resident but providing services here. So those are the ones that are going to really affect the day-to-day people, and we should expect to see those changes coming through.
So in other words, if you're going to buy diapers for the kids, and you are going to Taxify, Uber, and all those people, you are going to pay a little bit more.
Yeah, that's correct.
18% more. Well, the guys who sell it might round it off to 25 or 20.
No, since it's VAT, we expect that it should not be more than 18%.
No, the actual price you pay finally might be just a little bit over 18% in addition.
Yeah.
But problems of capitalism.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, let's talk about businesses. Now we have seen individuals, the common man.
Yeah.
As a business, what is coming at me tax-wise?
So as a business, there are a number of opportunities and things that you need to take, that businesses need to be cognizant of. One of the key opportunities that we are looking at, which we believe is still government's effort in ensuring that people comply with their tax obligations, is the waiver of penalties and interest for taxes that are due by 30th June.
Say that slowly.
So what will happen once the president assents to this bill is that if you have tax, you may have known by way of an audit that you have conducted internally that you ought to have paid tax on certain transactions. And then when you compute the tax, you know that the taxman will also ask you to pay interest, especially if that interest relates to the period after 1st July 2020, because that's when the last amnesty for interest was applied.
So issue here, we have a date after July 2020.
Yes.
Anything backwards, you were supposed to pay interest.
Anything forward after July 2020. So now government is saying if you pay any tax that applies to that period up to 30th June, and you pay that principal tax by 31st December, then they will waive the interest and penalties.
Go back over the dates again.
So if the tax applies to the period, so for example, you ask your tax consultant, they conduct an audit, and you find that you were supposed to pay VAT on some transactions worth 1 billion, and you've computed that there's interest there on of another 400 million, and you're still gathering strength to go to the Revenue Authority to find a way of paying, because you know usually compliance is just a matter of time. So once this provision of the Tax Procedures Code Act comes into law, then you can go to the Revenue Authority, pay that 1 billion, and the interest that accrued up to 30th June of 400 million would be waived. So that is how it's going to work. And it's a good opportunity for taxpayers to...
So it's voluntary, however, I must go.
Yes, you must go, and
they should not discover me.
The way it is, especially after it was passed by Parliament, it's no longer about the voluntary disclosure. So we expect that even if you are conducts an audit, then and there's interest payable for tax relating the period up to 30th June, if you pay all that tax by 31st December, then the interest should be waived. The other thing is that government is also trying, especially URA, is trying to shorten the period that they spend conducting audits. Because right now they would send you an email, tell you they've initiated an audit and ask for a whole list of information. Normally you'd find that some clients might be responsive while others will go quiet until they get an assessment. Because at the time when you get an assessment, you'd start panicking, because you know then the taxman might decide to collect if you're still non-responsive. So the restriction that they are providing now is that if they ask you for that information relating to the past 3 years, and you keep quiet and you do not present the information to the audit team, and they issue an assessment on the basis of maybe tax was not paid because you have not provided evidence or information, and then you go to the next level of appeal after you have obtained that assessment, the appeals team at objection level or even the next level of appeal will not be allowed to consider that information. So meaning that hoarding of information from a URA auditor is dangerous, because whatever tax they come up with and issue an assessment, you might not have much room to object to it. And
because of time, and you don't need to tell people everything. They need to come to you for the just technical things. Anything else coming at me as a business in terms of taxes?
Yeah, so the other thing that businesses need to think about, most of the VAT issues were upheld proposals. One of the proposals that was contentious and still is that for people who are dealing in auctioneering services, you'd find that right now the provision in the VAT Act that is being introduced requires that if you are the one who's auctioning the items, you'd have to account for VAT on your services, the auctioning services, but in addition to that, you have to account for VAT on the goods that you're auctioning. So that is still ambiguous, because most people come in to just provide the auctioning service. So if then you expect me to also account for VAT on the motor vehicle that have auctioned, it's a bit then ambiguous on how that, on how that will work. And the other thing is really around, we are seeing restrictions in VAT claims, where they are saying, like, if you're doing a business, you're in the business of advertising, they expect that any input VAT that you claim in your business, because you know that when you're doing business, you'll get charged VAT because you're buying a few things here and there. So the law is coming out to say that you'll only be allowed to claim input VAT to the extent that it matches the supply that you're providing. So they don't expect that you're doing advertising and at the same time you decide to build shops, and then in your VAT return you're claiming VAT on timber and all your other shops, because what you registered to do is advertising services. They expect that VAT should only be claimed on things which are really, similar or incidental to the providing of such a service.
Okay, Joy, can you believe our time is running out? So I see that the new tax here is one single one for those auctioneers, and the rest is about tax management and issues like that. Viewers, we don't have enough time to bring everything, but pay attention to NTV in the coming days. We are going to be bringing you more information on the taxes or any other things around the budget that are coming at you. We have only a short time here, and Julie has just given us the key as an individual, household, or a business. I hope you paid attention. If you missed this conversation, if you missed some of the things she has said, you can find this conversation on youtube.com/NTV Uganda. Click videos and scroll and search for NTV, the link. You'll find this conversation, and you can even watch it in slow motion if you want. That was the link. Thank you for joining us tonight.